On today's episode, Mike and Ryan do field research on stouts and porters and what makes them different. Cheers. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Brewthers-in-Law, where beer is thicker than water. In this podcast, we take a journey of discovering homebrewing, craft beer, and more. My name is Ryan, and with me as always is my brother-in-law, Mike. How's it going, Mike?
It is going well. I must confess, we were just discussing this. I'm a little bit intimidated about the amount of sampling we will be doing at 10 in the morning.
Yeah, this is an early start for some drinking.
And these are some pretty beefy beers.
I mean, if this was like Paps or Hams or something cheap, like I don't think it would affect that much. Right. But these are slightly heavier, and hopefully we survive.
We're gonna drink our lunch.
Yeah, and hopefully we survive for the next episode as well that we're gonna record later. But here on the show, Mike and I are both amateur homebrewers, excited about beer and homebrewing. On Brewthers-in-Law, we aren't looking to act as authorities, but to share our experiences with you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we hope you will share with us as well so we can all learn and grow and enjoy this wonderful hobby together. Before we dive in, we're going to go right into our first sip. And as you guys know, this is about stouts and porters. So usually more of a winter drink. I know some people that drink it year round.
Certainly are for me.
They are for me too. We have a friend
being a notable exception. Yeah. That's a year round.
Oh, it's so light. Yeah,
beautiful beverage.
But I have a friend who drinks it year round, like stouts and porters only.
You have trouble understanding
shout out to James.
Like, having like a big beefy 9%, or some kind of like a Russian Imperial Stout when it's like 95 outside. It's like, how are you doing that, man?
Well, James is the one that when we brewed for their wedding, and he wanted to do that chocolate orange porter.
Yeah.
And their wedding was, I think, in late summer, early fall. So still pretty warm here in Michigan. So
yeah,
still a heavy beer. It was a great beer, but like, whew, man, it was a lot to have at an outside venue.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the topic?
So going with that, what is your favorite wintertime drink? Doesn't have to be alcoholic. It can be non-alcoholic. It's just like something that screams wintertime for you.
Okay. I would say, I'll give an alcoholic and a non-alcoholic. Okay. I end up drinking a ton of red wine in the winter, like a nice Cabernet. And even we don't do this often, and I wouldn't even say it's better, but like there's something like maybe once a year we'll do mulled wine.
Okay, yeah, I've had mulled wine.
You like heat it up and add some spices, and that is pretty delicious.
Yeah.
So love that. Honestly, even just like your morning coffee gets better when, like, honestly, that's probably the other one is just like, if I come in and I'm freezing, I've just been outside, or like, in the morning, back in the before times when we would actually go into the office most mornings, we have a coffee maker there, and like I have to walk out from the parking lot. It's a bit of a walk. Mm-hmm. And so when it's like, -5 outside and I can come in and warm my hands up on a mug of coffee, it really is like my favorite winter drink because it's just so like, it heals the soul,
Yes. I love those. Mine is going to be non-alcoholic because the alcohol one is literally what we're about to have.
Stouts and porters.
It's the stouts and porters. But the one that happens every single winter for me, I'm going to be kind of a basic here. Peppermint mochas.
Oh, okay.
It's always that wintertime thing. As soon as I see, they do make them year round. Like you can order them year round, but like they're like advertised in the wintertime.
I've like tried a sip of, again, back in the before times when you could try sips of other people's drinks, but I've tried a peppermint latte and that was just okay. But I feel like a mocha where you add the chocolate in, that could be really good.
That's very good. It's like a bark, a mint bark type thing.
Oh yeah. Starbucks makes one too that we tried last year. It was like a gingerbread latte.
Ooh, okay.
That was pretty yummy. It was like, Their lattes tend to be like really sweet, so it's not something I would want a lot of, or one that I would get often. But and
that's why I do the peppermint, because it isn't super sweet with the mocha.
That's not, and honestly, like the chocolate sort of cuts the sweetness a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so
you're making me want some of that.
I know, right? I got my cold brew.
I've already had 2 coffees. I should probably stop.
Well, you needed it after recovering from last night.
I did,
so,
yes, yeah.
So let's dive in. with porters and stouts. I'll let you go first with the porters, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit about them going back and forth a little bit. But we'll do porters first, then stouts. So
excellent. Yep. Yeah. So just to kind of outline the episode, there's going to be 3 each, 3 porters and 3 stouts. And we'll take a break in between the 2 styles. So in modern times, these are very distinct styles. Porter and stout are not only distinct styles, but they have kind of sub styles, and we'll get into that a little bit.
Yep.
But it all started with porters, and stouts kind of grew out of that. So there's actually a lot of good information on the Anchor Brewing website.
Oh, really? Okay.
I feel like they need to start giving us royalties. I talk about Anchor like almost
but I said
every episode.
You're Anchor, and I'm what is it? Pim's Cup.
Pim's Cup. Yeah. They're keeping those companies afloat.
Yeah.
But so they say, and this is almost a verbatim quote, but it's interesting material. So all historical references to porter seem to go back to 1722. So it's a very old style.
Yep.
And a London brewer named Ralph Harwood. So back in those days, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but like there was kind of a time when like you couldn't, like basically the process of grain roasting, like it was hard to malt grains in such a way that they wouldn't darken. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but I remember distinctly that like basically like lighter grains sort of came as like a basically like a development in technology at some point. And so I believe that like kind of the strength of the beer sort of also determined how dark it was. So like because the grains were darker, stronger beers I think just were darker.
Okay.
That's not confirmed info, but I believe so. So this kind of made this sort of infrastructure where you could blend lighter and stronger beers to create, and they would kind of commonly blend beers to sort of make different strengths, different flavor profiles. So
I wonder if that was the start of like a black and tan type situation. So
maybe someone just did a really crappy blend and they didn't mix. And they're like, wait a minute, this is $1 million idea. But so Harwood created a beer that he apparently called Entire. I don't know why, but it referred to a blend of 3 separate beers, a beer, an ale, and a strong beer. And I confess, like, I have no idea. I believe in those times, maybe beer or ale actually referred to whether or not it was hopped. I seem to remember that. But
possibly. I'm not sure at all.
Suffice to say, like, it was a mix of 3 different beers.
Okay.
And then that would be mixed at the bar at the point of service. So it was like sort of like some sours, they'll put the syrup in, right? Too. So apparently at least prior to this beers would be mixed at the point of service, but I believe because this one became popular, it started being pre-mixed too. So it became popular as the working man's pint of choice, and people seem to think that the name porter was because it was a favorite of porters.
I actually had that in my notes.
I beat you to it. So these porters who labored at local markets and delivered products, those kind of delivery people were called porters, and because they liked it, that's where the name came from. So due to the lengthy aging required as this style developed, it was among one of the first beers to be made by freestanding breweries rather than by pubs, which I thought was really interesting. So apparently prior to that in Britain, pubs would just make their own beer, and there was no such thing as a freestanding brewery. That's really interesting.
That is. I did not know that at
so
all.
we can thank porters for the modern brewery scene.
There we go.
Apparently.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Britain,
porters.
for a few things.
So because only breweries could have the space for the huge vats that were necessary to store beer for extended periods of time. So then this is a bit of a preview of later, but eventually as that style developed, it also made its way to Ireland. Guinness started making it, and then they eventually put spins on it, such as the stout porter and the extra stout porter. And that's sort of, as we'll talk about a little later, where the modern stout styles spun off from.
You're taking my thunder.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm trying to just sort of breeze over that. Yeah. But so, then from there, it also spread to places like America, the Baltic region, sort of from Britain, it spread out. And as we'll see, a bunch of different variations on the porter developed, these sort of regional differences.
Yep.
So We are going to start, though, talking about the modern English porter. So the English porter, and again, this is going to be different from the kind of historical English porter, but this is how they're made now. So it's a moderate strength brown beer, and most of this information comes right from the BJCP guidelines, which you can look up online. So it's a moderate strength brown beer, about 4 to 5.5%. So fairly low ABV.
Yeah.
British beers often tend to be like that. Restrained roasted character and bitterness. A range of roasted flavors with some bready, biscuity, toasty, roasty sort of flavors. Maybe a little bit of chocolate, caramel, malty. But again, these flavors are all kind of in moderation. Nothing burnt. Burnt, you don't want burnt. I know that sounds like something you would never want in a beer, but stouts can have a little bit of like that kind of burnt flavor to it. And if there's the right amount, it can actually be really nice. Yep. But it's not something you want in a porter. An English porter is going to be, or at least in an English porter, there's going to be earthy and or floral hop character kind of in line with normal British hops. Fairly low bitterness, so something from like 18 to 35 IBU, and generally low presence of hop flavor and aroma. It's going to be a fairly easy drinking beer despite the color, so medium to light body and a medium to low fruity yeast character that again is pretty characteristic of British yeast. With that in mind, so the one that I chose is one I've been wanting an excuse to buy this for a while. It's Samuel Smith's famous Taddy Porter. So this is apparently, it's one that has like crazy high rankings on like Beer Advocate and stuff. And like Untapped and whatnot. And it's kind of considered, it's listed by the BJCP as like a classic example of an English porter.
Okay.
And I've had a couple of other Samuel Smith beers. They're really good. And so without further ado, cheers and let's begin the tasting session.
I like it. First of all, let's go through this first. The color is as black as the soulless person you can ever find.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of surprised by how dark it was. I was expecting when I say like a brown beer, this is not what I think.
No,
of.
this is darker like Guinness. This is like most stouts and porters what I would expect. When you said brown, I was expecting a little bit lighter.
The head is kind of brown.
The head is definitely great. That, like, actually,
Guinness tan color.
It definitely has the color for the head for any kind of stout or porter I've seen. Let me take one sip and you can talk a little bit. Yeah,
it's we haven't done American porters yet, but I have much more experience drinking American porters, and it's sweeter.
It is
than a lot of those. I do, having read it, power of suggestion maybe, but I feel like I can pick up that little bit of that like fruity British yeast character.
I can a little bit too. I was literally just thinking this, like there's one other flavor in there I could not until you just said it again. I'm like, oh, that is like a slight like almost. I don't want to say strawberry because it's too sweet, but I feel like it's kind of right on point there with like a slightly sweeter, not a citrus. I could see that
actually. Yeah, it's not citrus. Yes. You're right. It to me, it's kind of just nondescript fruitiness, but I could see it. Strawberry is kind of nondescript fruitiness. Yeah. So I can see that being true. And again, it's really subtle. I probably wouldn't have picked it out if I didn't know.
Yeah.
I definitely do get British yeast or British hop character, having just I forget if this episode has dropped yet, but you've got your Irish red cream ale on tap right now, and you used Fuggles and EKG, East Kent Goldings in that one.
Mm-hmm. And then
so those are very like British Isles hops, and I taste similar flavors in this. I almost, to me, in addition to the kind of earthy, I almost get like an herbal, like a tea sort of quality.
Well, actually, because I do have the right behind me, actually the short and stout, and it's secondary. I didn't really add a secondary, but it's like still getting all the stuff on the bottom so I can filter it out nice.
Excited for that.
But it's similar to that as well. I mean, obviously stout, that is a stout there, and this is a porter, so there's similar beers. But like that same exact thing, I use Fugel for the most part, and I think I use what was it? I forgot what the other one was I used.
I think it's East Kent Goldings.
East Kent Golding on that one?
EKJ. Maybe, I don't know. Or Cluster. Use Cluster.
Cluster, I think was the other one I did. And then those are very, very
it's
earthy.
Your beer. You tell me.
I don't remember these things. I need my notepad in front of me. But like it's like a similar like British earthy hops with it. So and I like this a lot.
This is really good. Yeah, to me, like now that I've had a couple sips, it tastes less sweet, and I'm honestly starting to get more of that kind of earthiness and the yeast. Like it's really like a well balanced beer. It's not overly malty. Like looking at these kind of characteristics I have written down here, I would say of any of them, I get like I don't get any chocolate really, and I get like a little bit of like toasty roasty,
definitely,
and I don't really get any biscuit either, but I do get kind of like a bready, sort of
breadiness. Thing. I will say the chocolate
and caramel. I definitely get caramel malt.
The chocolate
or
that's
caramel,
probably in there is probably more that. Not the sweet chocolate that we usually will find in some porters and stouts.
Yeah.
Especially with one that we will have come up later when we get to the stouts. But like it's that other version of that chocolate. That's that bitter chocolate. Almost.
Yeah. See, I don't even really get that. Like I could probably convince myself it's there, but that's not something that my palate really detected. So an interesting thing about this beer.
Did you finish your beer?
As I finish it. So it's only 5%.
Oh, really? Okay.
Couple of things. So yeah, like I said, this kind of right in the bread basket. 4 to 5, 5.5 is English porters. So these aren't going to knock you on your butt. But it's brewed with well water from the original well at their old brewery.
They got to run out of water eventually, don't they?
So that is really cool. So like it's kind of insane when you think about how much water they must pull to brew beer with. It must be a deep well, but
I'm about to say, yeah, I think they did that, and they're probably like partly mixing it with the regular water because eventually that well is going to run dry. I mean, I'm not calling you out, Samuel Smith, but I feel like you're going to run out of water.
Maybe they just put like a pint of like their well water so they can say that it's made of well water. But so presumably that means that this water is pretty hard, and I think that is. I haven't delved a ton into water chemistry, but I think in a lot of the British and Irish styles. I think that like water chemistry is considered like really important, and I think it is that they have like they use kind of hard water for their styles there because the and again this is something I can kind of convince myself on the end I could maybe get like a little bit of like mineraliness and again I'm probably tricking myself into that, but that's something listed on their website. Another interesting thing is that they use some cane sugar in this to dry it out. I know we've talked about this in a previous episode, but it's counterintuitive, but using sugar actually dries out a beer because the yeast eat it all. So it doesn't, like cane sugar is like completely fermentable. They eat all of it. Whereas like grain sugars, they only eat some of a proportion. So there's some left for you to taste. So cane sugar is going to dry out a beer and lighten the finish a little bit. And I think that's really interesting because I normally would associate that with lighter styles like, American lagers using adjuncts like rice or like cream ales using corn.
Cream ales, yep.
So that's interesting. Or Belgians, I guess. Belgians use a lot of.
Well, Belgians use like
a lot of like
candy.
Sugar syrup, but yeah, so that's the Samuel Smith Tatty Porter. That was delicious. I'm glad there's more of it. I will enjoy finishing this.
Well, we got another episode to record, so it'll be good there.
So next we're gonna move on to the little brother, the American Porter. And so like
such a Michigan fan of you.
Like most American styles, we sort of have we've taken the original and we've made it extra. So an American porter is generally going to be just sort of a souped up, more aggressive version, more assertive maybe version of an English porter. So a little bit higher ABV. You're looking at 5 to 6.5%. So still not crazy strong, but getting a little bit higher up there. I would say if you had a slider bar between a British porter and an American stout, an American porter is kind of somewhere in the middle where it's like not super aggressive, particularly with like the burnt and roastier kind of flavors you get in a stout, but it should be more flavorful and more complex than the British porter. So this one is going to be, they're generally medium brown to very dark brown, some even having that kind of ruby or garnet character and can approach black. And so that's something like Guinness has that. If you hold it up to a light, it's got this beautiful like red tint. So it can be kind of that darker color. similar base malt flavors to what I described for the English porter, but again, this can go slightly darker, so you can get a little bit of that burnt character, but it shouldn't be excessive. It should be a light note, and you'll definitely get some chocolate and some coffee flavors, which again, those come not from additions, but the darker roasted malts can add those flavors.
Yes.
So this is described on the BJCP as a substantial malty dark beer with medium to medium high body. So unlike the Taddy Porter that was pretty easy to drink, we should find that this American Porter should be a bit heavier on the palate, maybe more of a winter beer.
Yeah.
The bitterness is going to be higher, 25 to 59 IBU,
okay,
as opposed to 18 to 35 for British.
Yep.
And you're going to have anywhere between low and high hop presence. So there's kind of I think generally speaking, there's a broad range of things an American Porter can be. It can kind of range. If you go on the lower end of IBUs, the lower end of ABV, and the lower end of those roasty flavors, you can get something that's similar to a British Porter, or you can go to something that's almost a stout. It's a kind of it's got a lot of range that way. But the hop flavors are going to be similar compared to English. You're not going to use any of those citrusy American hops like Cascade. You're going to go with kind of earthy floral hops. So with that in mind, we'll go on to the tasting. So we are trying, this is one of my favorite beers, Great Lakes Brewing Edmund Fitzgerald Porter.
That's Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
So yes, brewed in memory of the sunken freighter who was lost when I believe it says was lost when the gales of November came early. So rip to the Edmund Fitzgerald.
All right.
So yeah, it's kind of a Michigan thing since that sunk, it's a Great Lakes thing, but if you're a fan of the song by Gordon Lightfoot, Whitefish Bay is in the Upper Peninsula.
Okay.
I love this beer and it's been sitting in front of me. Let's just drink it first.
I was gonna say, I'll let you. I'll let you go first. The one thing I definitely noticed right off the bat is the color. It's not nearly as dark as the last one. It's still dark, but I can see.
You can see the brown.
I can see. Yeah, I can actually see brown in there. So
yeah. So I just took my first sip. I definitely will say it has that kind of roastier. I get the light burnt and I get chocolate and a little bit of coffee, definitely.
Yes.
And it's also kind of true to form. It is heavier on the palate.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is very, very different than last one.
Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way, mind you. Like it drinks really well. It's very full bodied. But it is not one you would like slog on the beach.
No, definitely not one of those. Like I said, we talked about earlier.
It's so delicious.
Like for us, especially, like stouts and porters are like you're sitting next to the fire, you hear it going, the Yule log cracking, and then you just have this right there next to you drinking. If you can't get a scotch, you get this pretty much.
Right. Yeah.
But like this is very different, but still very good. And
I love this beer so much.
I will say this, and this is my bad news with this one. I'm not a huge fan of porters. I prefer me a stout over a porter.
Interesting. Why?
It's the flavoring, I think, and this is the reason why I'm not a huge fan of porters. It is that kind of burntiness that I get with more stouts.
I was good. Oh, you like?
No, with the porters, I get. Sorry, I meant porters. This porter has a little more burntiness. Most stouts that I have, and granted, this is because most stouts that you're going to find, except for Guinness itself, have a adjunct into it, whether it's coffee or chocolate or something.
In America nowadays.
Yeah,
we'll
get to those. But like this is I like this, but if I'm given this and like a coffee stout or something like that, I'm going to take the coffee stout.
Yeah. I guess I can see it. Yeah, like I think the traditional, I think based on styles, you would expect a stout to have more of those kind of roasty and like dark chocolate sort of notes, and that like burnt quality. I've always found that I notice it more in stouts, but you're right. Like a lot of porters, I think it's way more common to find just the porter, whereas for stouts, at least like where we shop, most stouts that are like American stouts have something added to them, and maybe it kind of covers, or if it doesn't cover those flavors up, it kind of like complements them.
Now we haven't gotten the last one yet, but I will say that you didn't really bring any flavored porters for the most part.
Oh, yes, it did.
I mean, this one is a little bit. This one is a flavor, but I'm like the other flavors. There are a lot of other flavors out there. You brought two very traditional porters with no actual adjuncts to it.
Yeah, and
then you brought another one that does have one kind of. I guess it's aged in it, but there are flavors you can put into a porter that make it a lot better for me.
You're
I know. I'm sorry.
Whatever the opposite of a traditionalist is what you are. Hold on, but before you move on, since you're not a huge fan of this, I'll talk about it a little more.
I like it. Don't get me wrong. But again, it's just like if I had to choose,
I get it's the balance is it's less sweet than the Samuel Smith, especially on the first sip. Whereas the Samuel Smith was sweet on the first sip, and I noticed the other flavors more later.
Yeah.
This one, I noticed the sweetness as I sip on it more. And originally, I get hit with those like wonderful, like kind of roastier chocolate coffee sort of flavors, which I find just absolutely delicious. And I think the hops are less noticeable just because the malt flavors are a bit more assertive on this one compared to the porter. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
I still get them. They're similar. It's that kind of herbal, floral, earthy sort of matrix. Again, I don't get any of that like British yeast fruitiness out of this one. So they mention specifically, they don't list most of their ingredients, but they have a spotlight ingredient on their page for this, and it's roasted barley.
Okay.
And roasted barley, I think, is really common in a lot of these beers. I know it's used in Guinness and a lot of Irish beers. So that's probably where they get a lot of their color from. But based on, I don't know, but based on the flavor, I'm assuming there's got to be some caramel malt in there and maybe like some chocolate malt and like some other. There are a lot of, when you get to malts that dark, there's a lot of different things you can do to get like kind of complex flavors. And I think that this is a delicious, complex beer. Like the Samuel Smith, this is kind of a classic. The BJCP list this as a classic American porter. It's like won a crap ton of awards at beer festivals and stuff.
Believe it.
So yeah, if you're looking for an introduction to an American porter, or you just kind of want a baseline, this is a great one.
Now I will say this: I do like these, but I will probably lean towards Samuel Smith over this one.
Hey, that's fine. I mean, like I had never had a British porter before, to be honest. Because they're just harder to find. And even this one, it comes in a big like bomber bottle with like a champagne cork, and like it's expensive. It's hard to find. It's even harder to find fresh because some of these, like you got to kind of have a liquor store that doesn't let things like sit and collect dust.
Yeah. Well, I about to say the bottle we got, I see actually some dust on there.
Yeah. So yeah, I wonder, and honestly, that may be part of like why it was so sweet. If it's a little old, that's sort of, too. That's part of it. I don't think you can ever get, like aside from something like Guinness that's really popular here, it's hard to get an authentic like British or like from another country, even German beers and stuff. A lot of them, it's hard to get like a fresh one in America.
Yeah.
Because they're like novelties that are kind of tucked in the back of a lot of stores. So,
and honestly, we all try to buy American and everything. And since there's so many breweries in any area you're in, you'll find the Buds and the Millers and everything else and that they do, but you'll find all the American versions and microbreweries
I've
around
even found
you.
in Michigan, like it can be hard to find big craft because Michigan has such a scene. They like most liquor stores stock mostly Michigan beer, which like it's not cool. It's not that I'm a fan of that. That's great. Support local. But like for this podcast, it's become annoying because when I'm trying to find a specific beer that's like Anchor Steam, for instance, like it's hard to find because like our liquor stores want to stock all of our local breweries, which is great until you want to find something that's not local.
And even like I got a good friend of mine in Canada, and we're right there on the border. Like, and honestly, yes, things have stopped because pandemic, but like prior to that, you could do back and forth between the two countries. Yeah. They actually have a decent amount of microbreweries up in Canada. Last time I went up to visit my buddy Moose, Ryan, for those who don't know him, he had some because he knows I like trying it, so he brought a couple and everything for us to try when we visited him, and they were really good beers. And he's like, "Yeah, it's just on the street, small little company. They bought an old drive-in movie theater and converted it into a brewery." I'm like, that's just a weird thing to buy and then convert to.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, even among breweries, that's one I haven't heard.
Yeah.
Warehouse, fine. Church, seen it. I've never seen a drive-in
I
movie
know,
theater.
right?
Okay, so before we get into, you kind of, we've now, we've done the classic original British porter.
Yes.
Then we've seen its American cousin, again, the classic. This next one we're going to try is a little weird. It's also a style called a Baltic porter. So we're going to kind of touch on those in order. So first I want to talk about like this beer we're about to try. It's Victory's Red Thunder. So I
love the name.
Yeah, it's a porter aged in wine barrels. So technically no fifth ingredient, maybe depending on how you look at it, but it is aged on oak, and oak that has held red wine. So hence the name. So this kind of brings us to talking about, I gave two really classic examples of porters, but porter is a style that people love to mess around with. I know, like prominently, the first thing that comes to mind for me when I think of a porter with additional flavors added is Atwater Brewing's Vanilla Java Porter.
Yes.
That's a Michigan thing. I don't know how widely they distribute, but it's a wonderful beer.
I'm surprised you didn't bring it, honestly.
And I think that sort of flavor profile of like coffee is fairly common.
Yes.
But the coffee vanilla porter, I feel like is something that I've seen a lot of examples of.
Yep.
Can you think like what other flavors? You especially love this sort of adjunct laden scene. So like what other things have you seen commonly done with porters in terms of extra additions?
There are a lot of them. I actually kind of give a little bit. I did a blog about this a few months ago for the blog I do. And so hopbrewingblog.com.
Plug it.
Yep. And so I did already kind of compare this, is why I thought this would be fun for you and I to kind of talk about it. You did talk about the coffee, chocolate, vanilla. Other flavors that I saw, one is bourbon, which is another one.
Oh,
similar to what we're about to have right here.
Actually,
where it's
adding bourbon or doing like
bourbon
a bourbon
barrel.
oak barrel?
Bourbon oak barrel, yeah.
Okay.
So doing that. And then
man,
honey
that's
is another one
delicious.
as well. That's actually another common one to
Honey
put in.
porter, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah. And actually that's worth mentioning. Like there are some there's some kind of like honey porter is sort of almost like a kind of a sub style, I guess. I know like that London. Oh, it's a London brown.
Yeah, it's a brown.
Is there a London porter?
I don't know the top of my head.
I think I'm wrong. I think it's a brown.
I know there is a honey brown. I know that. Yeah. I just can't think. I think it's from either London or Dublin, one of the two.
Yeah.
So.
Another interesting question: have you ever seen? As we'll get to with the stouts, a lot of stouts will be done on nitrogen gas, or like Guinness gas. Have you ever? Have you seen a lot of porters that are done on nitro?
I've seen it. I never had it, to tell you the truth, because again, I'm not a huge porter fan. So if I see a nitro stout, I'm going to take the nitro stout, and that's just my personal
And if
opinion,
someone does nitro, they probably at least do one nitro stout.
Yes.
So I guess follow-up question: would you agree that stouts are maybe more commonly added to than porters? It seems like I've noticed. I can't name you one American stout that is not either like a Russian Imperial Stout or has something added to it.
I'm going to do a little tease, and we'll talk about that when we do stouts.
Okay.
Because actually, I do have some notes on that, and I did some deep dives into flavors. There are some crazy flavors out there.
Well, right. But are you aware of like an American stout that doesn't have flavors in it? Like that's available around here, at least.
Available around here.
I can't name a single one.
Earl Spitz at Dragonmead is a perfect one.
Okay. No, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, there are
That's
some,
fair.
but they're usually at microbrews.
Like some
commercially,
some you can get it at the grocery store. Like
not that I know of. Not American, at least.
Like Bell's Kalamazoo Stout, I think even that has something added to it, and or it's an Imperial. I don't know, but so in any event,
yeah. So let's get into the Red Thunder here.
Yeah, let's try some Red Thunder. So again, the thing that was done with this is it was barrel aged. This is a wine barrel. Ooh, yeah, it smells really interesting.
Yeah.
So cheers.
Cheers. Ooh, wow, that's very.
It's tart.
It is very
tart. Get tart?
It's almost like sour, almost.
Yeah. Wow.
That's like a.
That is really interesting. I'm going to read the bottle. Do they say?
I mean, I will say this color is similar to the last one we had. It's maybe slightly darker than the last one. But man, that definitely has like almost a sourness to it.
All right.
How old is this? When is this? Did this bottle expire by chance? Just to make sure.
No, I don't see any dust on this one.
Oh no, there was. I wiped it off already.
Okay.
But
no, I remember having this beer in the past, and I feel like I recall that flavor to it. But yeah, it's stronger than I remember. I love well, honestly, I wonder, like barrel aging. Oftentimes, like a lot of people will barrel age to get sours. You sort of seed a barrel with like Brettanomyces or some like lactic acid producing bacteria, and you can use barrels to sour your beers.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that just kind of comes with how long they barrel aged it for, if it does sour a little bit.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know if it's intended, but intended or unintended, it's a nice flavor.
Yeah, because I'm reading the back right now, and it says...
It is a really... So this what would you put the ABV at on this beer based on how it drinks?
I'd probably put it at about 6 or 7.
8.5.
That is very strong for a porter, because porters are not generally that strong.
I'm glad you bring that up.
Oh, really?
Because so first of all, I will say this is an incredibly drinkable beer for 8.5%. Honestly, I can't help but wonder to me, a lot of the other flavors, like maybe it may be too that like some of that tart, we may be sort of mixing it up with like that wine flavor. Probably
that's definitely the wine flavor is tart for me.
Contributes to it a little bit, but it kind of covers up a lot of the porter flavor. But it's worth mentioning that this is technically, it's marketed as a Baltic porter, which is another classification of a porter. It originates in countries around the Baltic Sea, like Denmark.
You don't say.
So again, this style, I saw somewhere it said no hops. That's a direct quote, which is not true because it's 20 to 40 IBU.
Okay.
Which is actually like
very high fairly
high,
style,
but the ABV for this style is 6.5 to 9.5. So all you have to consider that like you add more grain to get like IBUs are kind of relative to how much malt you put in.
Yep.
And when you're making a big beer, the same amount of hops will taste less prominent in a beer with more malt. Mm-hmm. So like the malt will kind of cover them up.
Yep.
So, but like this beer is easy drinking. I do get the little alcohol tang.
Yep.
And I feel like it kind of almost even accentuates the wininess it has, because like when you drink red wine, you get a little bit of that. It's like, it's not bad. It's kind of nice. Just like that little alcohol complexity.
I do like it. It's very different than what the other ones were.
Yeah.
I would honestly, I would drink this more of this one.
If you handed this to me and said, this is from Jolly Pumpkin, it's their sour brown ale, I would have believed you.
Yes.
Like, I'm shocked at how sour this.
Well, Victory does some sours too.
It's not like ridiculous. Yeah, they do Sour Monkey. They're like soured version of their like whatever their monkey. Crazy Monkey or whatever. I forget what it's called. They have like a really famous.
That's not Monkey King. That's
golden ale.
Okay, yeah, that Monkey King. Then that's a triple, I think, with banana and such.
But so, I love just there are a couple things on the back of this bottle.
I know. I was reading some of those things.
Subtle and seductive.
I know.
Love that. The burnished cocoa creaminess of this beer is now accented with the tannic dryness that the wood imparts. Like our Baltic Thunder, Red Thunder honors the Baltic god of heavenly rumblings. It says, as the ever-changing porter is as predictable yet romantic as an evening storm.
I mean, honestly, the bottle alone, because it is a bigger
marketing.
bottle. It is a bigger bottle, so it kind of looks like a wine bottle too. Yeah. Like if I brought. If someone brought this to like a date and be like, "This is the wine for tonight," and pop it and pour everything out into a glass, I'd be like, "It's very dark," and take a sip, like, "Oh, it's kind of like wine-ish." If I didn't know what was going on, yes, I would probably say that.
Yeah, honestly, like the more I maintain that it is a little tart. I know we've beat that horse to death, but like it's not ridiculous, but it's like surprisingly inescapable that it's tart. But I do think that like it mostly, a lot of that I think is like the red wine character that it has.
Yeah.
Man, I could get into trouble with this one though.
You could.
We're gonna need to, on our break, I'm gonna need to eat some bread. So this one is going to my head.
All right. You got any other notes on porters though?
No, I think we've covered it. I guess I'll just sort of shout out that Victory is based in Downingtown, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
They're a really great brewery. They're
I've had
pretty
a few
easy
of
to
theirs.
find around.
Mhm.
But if you're near there, again, all of these breweries are really, really good. So definitely worth checking out. And since, we tend to, because they're available and we like them, do a lot of like local stuff sometimes when we do these tastings. But if you're anywhere near Pennsylvania listening, or you find yourself there, definitely check them out, because I've had a lot of their beers and like they're an excellent brewery. They also did Victory's the one that did that insane like rum barrel pumpkin beer that was 14.5%.
Oh, they did that one too?
That was them.
Oh my God.
So yeah, they do some crazy stuff. They're not afraid to experiment. You probably would love them.
Yeah, I mean, I love trying new flavors. You know me, so.
Golden Monkey. That's the name of their golden ale.
Okay.
And I think Monkey King is like the triple version.
Yeah, they did like a Belgian triple or Belgian triple.
Anyhow, that is neither here nor there. So let's go to break, and when we come back, since you don't like porters, you can talk about your baby, the Stout.
Yes, we will.
Cheers.
Hey, this is Jordan Johnson.
And I'm Max Olmstead.
And we're at the Top Hat Balloon Show here.
Yes, so it's a sketch comedy show, and it's a complete secret to everyone.
Yeah, it's a super secret. It comes out weekly, but only you can know about it.
Yes, you're one of the special few who we're telling about it.
Yeah, so make sure you go to YouTube, iTunes, or our website,
tophatballoonshow.com.
Yeah, and watch our videos and subscribe, but don't tell anyone. Well,
tell some people.
Maybe tell some people.
Maybe a few folks.
Maybe only tell each of you only tell 20 people each.
Yes. Then it'll still be small and cool, but...
Yeah, but it's a secret, okay?
Yeah.
It's a secret.
Keep that in mind.
The secret Top Hat Balloon Show, okay? Goodbye.
Hi there, I'm David.
And I'm Kate.
And we're the hosts of another Zelda podcast.
There are so many good podcasts out there, and some of them in particular concern The Legend of Zelda.
That's right, Kate, and we are another one of them. That is actually the name of our show, Another Zelda podcast.
And in our show in particular, we talk about some of our favorite dungeons, characters, boss battles. We have top 10 lists.
Yeah, we do deep dives on game design and production aspects of the different Zelda games.
And we talk about our own experiences. We do some review episodes, talk about our challenges, our struggles, and our victories.
That's right. Really just almost anything that has to do with Zelda, we like to talk about it. A new episode comes out every other Friday, and you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and YouTube.
And you can also check out our episodes on our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com.
That's right. All right, we will see you there.
Okay, bye!
And we're back. So, Ryan, we've had a chance to sample a few excellent porters, which are wonderful beers, and people who don't like them are heathens. Why don't you tell us a little bit about? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Stout, the porter's descendant, if you will?
Yes, the bigger brother, honestly, because
it's like the younger brother who grows up to be 6'3". Like, not that I can speak from experience.
I was about to say, Danny. So, as we talked about earlier, porters were the first, and stouts kind of came from that. So, porters got to Ireland pretty much, and the Irish people, in their true fashion that they are, decided we can make this stronger, and that's pretty much what they did. So, what a stout is pretty much almost exactly the same. When I did my research for this, when I was doing that blog, obviously flavors, we'll talk about that later, but it's made with very similar grains, very dark grains, similar hops of those earthy fugal hops and stuff like that. The real only strong difference between the two is the ABV. Traditionally, porters are usually around 6%, while stouts can range starting at 7 or 8 or even higher.
Okay.
So most stouts that you'll find will probably be around that 7 or 8 range, but you can find ones that are a lot stronger.
But some of them, like a lot of the Irish versions, like Guinness, are lower than that, right? Isn't Guinness 4?
Guinness, I think, is not actually. I might have to Google this. Hold on. Yeah, it's not on their can that I have in front of me.
I'll Google it while you talk.
Google it real quick. But for the most part, stouts are usually when I made the stout that I have right now.
4.2.
4.2. Okay, so it's very weak compared to it. But like, if you look up most stouts, if you just do a search of stouts and their ABV, I actually did this because when I started my stout and I was testing the gravity with only the original gravity and then the estimated final gravity, they were saying it was going to be about 9%. I was like, oh my God,
Oh boy.
that's going to be too strong for Hobbit Day. That's going to kill all of us.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I got the final gravity. It came down to about, I think about 7 or 8. And I looked it up. Traditionally, most commercial stouts would be about 7 to 8.
Are in that rate, like
Yeah.
for American stouts?
Yeah, for most stouts commercial in general, they just come
Yeah.
out that way. So they are a little stronger, and that's really it.
Yeah, I've always, I think kind of going along with that, since stronger means more malt, I've always found that stouts have, it's like the same flavors, but more, especially those like deeper, like I said, I at least get, like granted, a lot of times there's other stuff in there that sort of covers it up, but I get more roasty, I get more burnt personally, and more coffee and more chocolate, like I get more of those flavors out of stouts than porters, which I think was where the name came from, right? A stout porter
Yes,
is like...
that's originally, Guinness was originally called a stout porter.
Yeah.
And then they eventually just dropped
They just
porter
dropped
and
the
called it
name
stout.
porter and it became its own thing. But yeah, that literally means it's like a beefy version of the porter.
Yep.
It's just got more of the same in it.
So we're going to start in.
It's Super Saiyan porter.
It's Super Saiyan. So we're going to start into it and do the most known stout. We all know it. We all probably had it. It's Guinness. So,
it's Guinness.
And it's in a can, so you're going to hear the cracking and the hiss of the
that
nitronized.
wonderful little nitrogen widget. Oh, yeah.
I know.
There it
and
is.
I actually did some research. Because we were talking about this before. You unfortunately are not able to buy. Oh, I love the Cascade.
Oh, man.
You cannot buy cans like this if you wanted to do can and bottle of nitronize.
You can't buy the little nitrogen widgets?
I didn't look up widgets, but I looked up like actual cans.
Oh.
Like this style can where the widget is side of it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm going to give us a little extra. This is pretty light stuff.
Oh my God.
I know. I love, you guys can't see it.
If you never
but
have poured a Guinness, like just buy, you got to get the cans or get it at a restaurant.
Yes.
That's even better on tap.
Yes.
But like, you got to get the cans because the bottles just don't work as well. But
I'm just mesmerized by this. I can just
know,
watch this all day.
it's so cool.
while that Cascade's on mine at least, you can drink yours. But Guinness is from 1759 was when it started.
Dang, and so the first porter goes back to 1722. So that's like that happened fairly quickly.
And it's actually, I did a quick little research today. It is one of the most successful alcohol brands worldwide.
I can believe that.
It is brewed in almost 50 countries and available in 120
honestly,
countries.
It's so singular. Like,
well, they only brewed that for the most part.
Like, partly because it's nitroed and like just how often, like when you go to a bar, like not a craft brewery that might or may not have a nitro system where like they do a bunch of beers. If you go to a bar or a restaurant, Guinness is going to be probably the only nitro beer they have. Like I've said, we get like I think Left Hand Brewing does a nitro milk stout around us that has similar, but like even that though, it's a milk stout, so it's like sweeter, it's heavier. Like there's nothing quite like Guinness. It's so drinkable for being so dark, and it's the nitro. It makes it really unique, and especially at restaurants and stuff. Like I said, it's like one of the few that you'll find.
And we talked about this in another episode. I don't know if it's been out yet, but
so good.
About our beers that we like. And I said Guinness was one of mine, and I would love to make my own version of it. And I talked about like this was like my second beer.
Really?
Or first or second beer that I ever had.
I remember the first time I drank a Guinness, like one of my friends basically like did the kind of like just man up and drink it. Like
well, no, I was the opposite.
I was shocked at how
drinkable
it is.
Yes.
It's so drinkable.
Well, my situation for that was the opposite. Every time I ordered Guinness at a restaurant or something like that, my family or friends around me like, "You gonna drink Guinness? It's so heavy." I'm like, "It is not.
It's
heavy.
not though.
It is so good. I'm gonna drink this real quick."
Not. But yeah. So color wise, it actually again, I think this is lighter than the Samuel Smith Porter.
Agreed.
But dude,
slightly.
just like hold it up to the light, you really do get it. It has this gorgeous like garnet color.
Yes. On the bottom of the glass, especially
when the light shines through it, it looks like a garnet. It's just beautiful, and this is something we've now sort of talked about without talking about. But nitrogenizing a beer, I don't know where it came from, but it's really common to do with stouts in particular. So basically, it's not pure nitrogen. It's actually a mix of like roughly, I think, 2/3 nitrogen and 1/3
Really?
CO2.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And apparently, it like part of what it does is it just kind of kicks some of the CO2 out. So like it kind of just flattens the beer.
And it makes it so
But
drinkable.
it's not just that. It's not. It's not just flat because you can have a flat beer and it won't taste like this.
Yes.
It also adds this like creamy, creamy mouthfeel.
Key.
And it's so funny, like how I'm sure the low ABV plays a role too, but like Guinness, it has all of those flavors, like the kind of like chocolate roasty coffee sort of flavors.
Yes.
It has the kind of like bready, toasty, roasty, like it's got all of those malt flavors, but they're all like toned down.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of, again, like just British Isles compared to America, something that's just the differences. Like a lot of their beers are more subtle, but this one is so subtle. Like
Now,
there are so many good flavors, but none of them like hit you upside the head.
Now I do have it's not their recipe, it's a clone. And pretty much you got English two-row malt, which probably, I don't know if it's what the difference between English and American is, but
oh, well, it's probably something like Maris Otter.
Yeah. Then you got flake barley and roasted barley. That's pretty much all your grain. And then you have...
It's so shocking that they get so much flavor out of just those. Like no caramel malt, no... and honestly, that may be part of why it's so smooth. Is there's nothing... none of the grains are really making it sweet.
Mm-hmm. And then you have... Only hop in there is East Kent Golding. And then you just use an Irish ale yeast, pretty much.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much
Have you
beer.
ever used Irish? Like, does Irish yeast have the same flavor profile as like British?
I have not used it, to tell you the truth, so I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I'd be curious about that. I guess if you have ever brewed with Irish ale yeast, I'd be interested to know. I'm sure we could look it up, but like British ales do have this like distinct, or British ale yeast has this distinct character that I feel like I can pick out. But yeah, man. It's just a wonderful beer. If you've been scared off by Guinness for the color, it really is kind of a gateway beer because it's so mellow. Like you can drink it on the beach.
This is like the Two Hearted of stouts.
It's a gateway,
like Two Hearted, which is here in Michigan, which is an IPA. It's a gateway IPA for a lot of people.
That was my dad's gateway IPA.
I know a lot of my family. They hated IPAs. They just say, it's too I don't want to do anything with it. And then I brought over Two Hearted. They tried it, and now they
they're
go
all
out their way.
hopheads.
Yeah. Well, besides my uncle, who just did not like his rule was, there are sometimes I want quality over quantity, but most times when I drink, I want quantity over quality. So he drank Labatt Slides.
Well, that's fair.
Love my uncle. He passed, but I love him, and I actually bought him because his name was Norm. I bought him Norm's Raggedy Ass, and he loved it. And he did drink it, but he says it's not one of my favorites, but it was good.
Right.
So,
okay. Yeah. Fair.
But going back to this, I had family that told me you're eating your beer. I'm like, no, this is light. I could chug a beer. I could chug a Guinness easily.
And I can't remember if we talked about this when we did the the Dream Beers episode, but that was I think a marketing thing for a while. I'm gonna get some new glasses because there's a lot of the nitro. Yeah, good idea. Back in the that's the other thing about Guinness is, man, it leaves legs on your glass. It's so cool. You can see the line of every single sip that you take.
Yes.
But they marketed it at some point as being a sort of a nutritional supplement because there was a time that's not now when we didn't have access to so much junk food that it was hard to stay fit. It was hard to, food was more scarce and people worked hard, and it was hard for some people to get their nutrition. So it was Guinness, it's got, it's got carbs and calories. It's got what you need. It's got what people crave.
Yes. All right. So before we get into the next one, which is actually going to be a new beer for both of us. I didn't actually not try this one.
I'm really excited.
So before we dive into that, it's because it is a flavor. I want to just talk about flavors of stouts. So we kind of dove a little bit. I'm going to go real quick. So with stouts, and when I did my research, here's everything that I found. So you usually have your chocolate or coffee and stuff like that, but here are other ones that I found: maple syrup, oatmeal, banana, milkshake, blueberry pancake.
I've actually seen a banana bread.
Yes, and then blueberry pancake stout.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just too much.
I've actually
I had not
heard-
tried that one. But
I'm surprised to hear you say that, but considering one of the beers we have in front of us, but like
you'll like this one.
I have heard that there's like a new trend called a pastry stout, where like you just basically try and make your stout taste as much like a dessert as possible.
Well, we'll get to that one later.
So
this one I have.
So hold on, real quick, but before we get to that, I didn't want to like chip in. So we alluded to this earlier, but that's my experience too. Is like most American stouts have something in them,
Yes.
even if it's just a little bit of coffee beans to like accentuate the coffee flavor that's already in a stout, or whether it's barrel aged. Like I have trouble. I don't have access to just a regular American stout, but they do exist. And
Are you actually looking up?
the comparison here on BJCP just says like a hoppy, bitter, strongly roasted extra or export stout. Much more roast and body than a black IPA. Bigger, stronger versions belong in the Russian Imperial Stout, but it's stronger and more assertive, particularly in the dark malt and hop character than American Porter. So it's 35 to 75 IBU for an American Porter. So it's more bitter, it's more malty, and it's generally just like, again, more extra than an American Porter, which is more extra than a British Porter. Some examples include Sierra Nevada Stout, which may be the one that is easiest for most people to find.
Yes.
Rogue Shakespeare Stout, Deschutes Obsidian Stout, Avery Out of Bounds Stout,
Oh.
North Coast Old Number 38, which I feel like I've heard of, but I've never had.
No.
But again, none of those are available in the store. So what we usually get here are stouts with at least something, and I believe that's what this is, right?
So this is an actual microbrew near where I live called Dragon Mead, and as you know, based out of Warren.
Shout out to Dragon Mead.
Shout out.
Amazing brewery if you are ever in the Detroit metro area.
So this is a newer beer, I believe. I'm
Also,
not sure.
they're like, we married into the family, so
Yeah, we're a little biased.
We're very biased, but they are wonderful.
But when I went there, I wanted to get an actual like traditional stout, which is called Earl Spit. It's a regular stout, no adjuncts to
Because
it.
apparently it's so good that Earl Grandpa must have spit in it.
Yes,
To make it
so
that good,
good.
yeah.
But they were out, so I had to look through, and I almost asked. I realized this later. You can't do it, but they had Reverend Fred's oatmeal, but it's nitro, and you can't get a growler. Well, you can,
It
but
would
you have to
probably
drink it
take
right
them
away.
3 hours to like fill
Well,
that.
also
first of all,
you have to drink it right away because it loses powers, and most breweries won't do it.
okay.
So
Interesting. Yeah.
I went with their new one that I know of. It's called L'Chaim Coffee Stout.
Lime.
So
Dude,
I
it
had not had
smells-
this.
It
I have not had
smells
this
like
at all.
coffee. It smells so good.
I feel
It
like this is a
black
good one
as
at 10
pitch.
a.m.
If
Yes.
you hold it up to the light, none of the light gets
Yes,
through.
no, don't see anything. But this would be perfect for a morning. I felt like this would be.
Yeah,
Good thing.
I need some caffeine after 5 beers. Oh my god, it's so good. Oh my god, it's so good.
Now I'm recently got into like this year. I've really gotten into coffee and like I used to drink tea
I'm
and only
so
tea.
glad.
And
I'm so
this
happy
is
for
so
you,
good.
you and Mal, that you now are coffee people.
Well, Mal's been a coffee person. She goes back and forth.
Yeah,
between
but
tea and coffee.
she used to like just drink tea more so, right? Because you drank tea.
Because I drink tea, yeah. It was
Yeah.
because we
It
didn't
was
have
just
we just
easier,
didn't have
yeah.
anything. Now we have
Now you
a
have
French
the
press.
infrastructure.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So
Oh, French press. That's so good.
so I gotta say this is
This
I looked this one up.
effing
Hit my camera-
delicious.
Hit my microphone there. I looked this up. I could not find anything really about it.
Do you know the ABV? Because this drinks really easily.
I don't know that. I don't know. I probably should have took a
I
Snapchat.
feel like
on,
this could
their
be
menu.
a scary beer.
It probably is.
And honestly, so I'll say, maybe it's from drinking like bad gas station coffee, but like I get the burnt. Like I said, I don't use burnt as a pejorative. Like it's a part of that. Like really deep roasted, like dark roasted grains have this burnt quality that's not bad if it's balanced right. I get it in this.
See, I taste.
But it is amazing how well the coffee like props it up, where it's like it takes that, which is like something that you say you don't like
Yep.
about like American porters, for instance, and it just really like accentuates it in a way that makes it so good.
But see, and that's the thing that's the difference is that the coffee does kind of bring it up, but also kind of like hide it just a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
it hides it,
yeah.
but it also like puts it in like context where it's really good.
Yes, exactly. I think that is the difference between what I like about porters and what I like about stouts.
Yeah.
Porters generally don't have that adjunct to
Yeah.
really hide it. To at least for American porters,
Yeah.
they don't have anything to hide it. Well, they probably do somewhere, but
Yeah, like I don't get any of like the kind of caramely, and to say like with Guinness, that's one thing I'm noticing is like I get kind of a caramel quality to a lot of porters. Not overpowering, but especially like the British porter. And again, maybe that was just it being old
yeah.
and a little oxidized, but I get that. But British porter's supposed to be sweeter. I get that. I get it a little bit in the Edmund Fitz. I don't get that caramely quality in either of these stouts at all.
Not at all.
It's more roasty. It's not, and it's this one finishes pretty dry too. It's not nearly as light as Guinness, and part of that may be the nitro versus the carb, but it drinks easy, and it's just got like a wonderful roasty character. But again, like this one,
As you take another sip.
as I take another sip, yeah, it's got a really nice dry finish, good coffee flavor. God, this is so good.
This is the first. I
wanna go
did
on,
not know they had this, so I literally went in there to get Earl Spit, and they were out, and literally like I frantically looked through the menu, like what other stouts do they have?
Yeah. Shout out to Eric, the lead brewer there, because this is a hit.
Yes,
I think.
yes.
I'm going to be getting a growler of this maybe the next time
But I'd say while you're here, you might as well maybe just
while
loop
we're in
around
Warren,
and come
while
back
we're in
around.
Warren.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think we should save that for the next episode thing that we're gonna do with a little.
Oh yeah. Let's.
I think
do
that'd be
that.
a good one.
Yeah.
And we got plenty of it, so like
We're
it's
gonna
a
do
howler.
We're gonna do a little experiment with this beer.
Yep.
One thing that you sort of touched on that I want to talk about before we get to, because like the porters, the last one I kind of threw a curveball. We did two more traditional, and even though this one has coffee in it, really a coffee stout has become fairly traditional.
Yeah.
So your last one's going to be again a bit of a curveball. So before we get to it, because I've got a couple more sips of this left, I want to just talk about some again like the flavors of stouts, because again this is a style that really just lends itself because the flavors. The flavors are complementary to things like coffee, to things like, apparently people think they're complementary to things like pastries and like and bananas
Sweetness.
and pancakes.
It's really a sweeter. Try go for a sweeter flavor sometimes.
I think the thing is that stouts aren't sweet at all. At base, they're aggressive and like roasty and bitter. And so they led themselves well to, you wouldn't want to take a beer style that's already sweet and add more sweet to it, but you can take a stout and you can balance it with like.
I think that's the key. So I'm gonna take a slight dive here while you finish yours. So stouts have that kind of bitterness to them, and same with porters have that kind of like almost bitter burntness to them. So they add a lot of the adjuncts into it to kind of balance out and give it a little flavor to hide that.
Yeah.
IPAs are coming out to be the same thing. You have really bitter IPAs, and now you're getting like a lot of citrus ones, a lot of fruit ones. I'm seeing a lot of crazy flavors with it.
But it is
to
interesting
hide
because
that
it's
bitterness.
like different stuff. Like I don't think a citrus stout would be good.
No. But I'm saying they're using.
So like with IPAs, you can take the bitterness like. Because of the flavors that are already there are usually these kind of citrusy hop flavors, you can add fruit.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
To kind of hide that bitterness. And here you've kind of got already a little bit of coffee, a little bit of chocolate notes, a little bit of like
it's a different
dark fruits, like maybe some like plum licorice sort of things. And so you can lean into that instead.
But that's what I'm saying. Those both stouts and IPAs have that like that flavor that could push people away because it's a bitterness or it's a flavor, and that's why they add a flavor to it. Whether it's for the stouts, you do the chocolates, the coffee, or the IPAs, you do the citrus, and that hides it for each one.
Yeah, or it at least balances it.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting where it's like a lot of these flavored things, it's about Leanne. I don't know if you've ever had, some people interpret cream ale to mean like it should be creamy, which is wrong.
Yeah.
Objectively wrong, but like, I've had like some cream ales that use like lactose and stuff to make it like milky. I had one that was like meant to be like basically like an orange creamsicle cream ale.
Okay.
And it was disgusting because none of the flavors in a cream ale lend themselves to that. It was so gross.
No. Have you ever had Boddington's?
No.
So Boddington's is a nitro cream ale that they do in Ireland.
See, that could be interesting.
Yeah.
But that's different because when you're nitroing, you're like, I see what you mean. Like it's literally making it creamy, but it's not making it like milk cream, like
Yeah.
half and half.
Yeah,
cream.
yeah.
This was like half and half creamy.
Ugh.
It was gross.
I'm gonna say I do lactose in the stout, and that's the only thing I use lactose
but that's
for.
the thing. I think like the stout lends itself to those sorts of flavors, whereas a cream ale doesn't.
Yeah.
So sorry.
No, you're
Still,
good.
hold on. Before you get to that,
Oh.
a couple more sub styles I want to bring up. We'll get to that one, but you mentioned oatmeal stout,
Mhm.
another very famous like Founders Breakfast Stout,
Yep.
Another Michigan thing, but like world renowned beer. I saw a Founders like decal on a wall in several bars in Ireland. So like Founders is big. You could
Yeah.
probably find the oatmeal breakfast stout. We may even do an episode on like all the spins they've put on that beer because they're
yeah.
so famous.
Well, same thing with vanilla Java Porter. They did the same thing actually. They put a bunch of spins on it.
Yeah, but so how do you feel about oatmeal stouts? We don't have one to try, but like it's almost a distinct sub style of a stout.
It is. I have not really gone out of my way to try oatmeal stouts. Mainly, and it's a predisposition, I don't like oatmeal.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
I see oatmeal stout, I'm like, I'm gonna go
No,
away
thank
and
you,
try
yeah.
this one instead. Chocolate
Yeah,
stout. Let's
that-
go with the coffee
That's
stout
fair.
instead.
Honestly, I don't drink a ton of them. They are generally pretty heavy.
Okay, then yeah, I'm
It's
not sure.
like the Founders Breakfast Stout. We all laughed. We remember when we did Grandma's like 80th. I think it was her 80th birthday at we did a birthday brunch.
Oh,
And they had on their breakfast menu, it was like mimosas, Bloody Marys, Founders Breakfast Stout. I was like, what? Because
One of these
to
things
me,
is
it's
not like
always
the
like
other.
it's because it is so. It's like eating an oatmeal cookie or something. It's like it's so filling.
Yeah.
It's not something I would want to eat with breakfast. I
No.
was like, I feel like you've misinterpreted this.
a coffee stout would have been better.
but
Like
it
this
is
would've-
like-
this one we just had would have been perfect.
But I will say, like, I think the idea with oats, because you use oats in a New England IPA to kind of make it creamier too. Some New England IPAs
So
will use like
I did
flaked
not.
oats.
No, I did not.
So you can use flaked oats to get that sort of creamier mouthfeel. Apparently, I've never used them, but that's what people say on the interwebs. So that's just kind of an interesting thing, like a way to kind of creamify a stout without nitroing it, but it doesn't. I don't think it makes it as light.
Well, that's why
It doesn't
I do,
lighten the body the way that nitro can.
Well, that's why I do the lactose in the stout that I make because I want to try. I would love to nitro this beer one day.
Yeah, but so that's a little different though. Like
Yeah.
lactose, you're looking more at like a milk stout,
Mhm.
where it's like your lactose base. It's milk sugar, and it's a sugar that yeast can't eat.
Yeah.
So like and it's sugar from milk, so it has a bit of a milky quality to it, but it also adds sweetness. Like oats will add kind of like a creaminess on the feel,
Okay,
but
now I
not the
got you.
taste.
Now I
Whereas like
got you.
lactose is going to add sweetness,
Yeah,
right?
I got you now.
So they are, it's kind of creamy is a tough descriptor because it means so many things.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of milk stouts,
Speaking of milk stouts, so I actually have one. This is from Saugatuck Brewery Co., which is here in Michigan, and Saugatuck, I believe.
good guess.
This is their Neapolitan Stout. You heard me right. Neapolitan.
Ooh, baby.
Now, the first time I had this,
We
I
were
had
talking
it-
about
I had it
strawberry
nitro.
when we had the Samuel Smith Porter.
I brought that up.
This is going to take it to another
So
level.
I had the first time I had this was at a little brew hub type situation, and they had this nitronized, and it was amazing, so good. So
That sounds really good. Like if milk stouts almost like kind of want to be on nitro, and I believe I don't know a lot about milk stouts, but I think a milk stout just means that they've added lactose to it.
yeah,
right?
I believe so. Yes.
So it'll be a little bit sweeter. Again, you're kind of complementing, but also like balancing the bitterness
Yeah.
of a stout, the kind of aggressive bitterness of a stout.
So I
So-
would put this
oh my
color
God.
similar to.
I smell Neapolitan ice cream.
It's
Jesus.
crazy. Yes,
The
it's,
color is kind of
It's Guinness, almost Guinness like.
it's
Maybe a little darker.
though. No, the light, there's really not a lot of light that gets through, but it's not quite as pitch black.
Yeah.
It's like off black.
Yeah. So I'll let you go first. Cheers.
Bottoms up.
I bought a 6-pack and there's only one left, so I've had quite a few of these.
Dang.
I told you.
You know, like I'm not always on board for like beers that are laden with like a ton of extra stuff, or like I wouldn't call myself a traditionalist. Like I like a lot of beers that add some things. I was skeptical about this. It's really good. This kind of falls into what I would call like that. Like I said, I've never had one that labeled itself as a pastry stout, quote unquote. This kind of tastes like what I would imagine that to be, where it's like it drinks like a dessert.
Yes. So
It really tastes like Neapolitan ice cream. Like,
from
oh my God.
Saugatuck, it says a perfect blend of classic dry stout character with brilliant flavors of Neapolitan ice cream. Experience the nostalgic flavors of chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry all in one glass, because sometimes ice cream just isn't enough.
You're right. Ice cream doesn't have booze in it. So
No, that's true. So I did actually find like a kind of a clone-ish recipe to this. So 2-row, crystal, 2 rows your base right there, and then they add a little bit of crystal, chocolate malt, and black patent, which we talked about is like a darker, which probably gives it that.
Black patent's like going to give it that kind of stout color and a little bit of roasty character.
Mm-hmm.
Caramel's going to give it caramely flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on the level of roasting, you can get anywhere from like caramel candy to like slightly kind of darker, more like burnt caramel sort of flavors.
And then you have Columbus hops, only 1 ounce of Columbus hops in this.
That makes sense. Yep. This is not a hoppy
and
beer.
then in the secondary stage, you add strawberry flavoring, vanilla bean, and cocoa nibs, and then you use American ale yeast.
I'm shocked at how delicious this is.
I know.
It is.
And now imagine
really
nitro,
good.
like that. I feel like that nitro creaminess just makes it so much
yeah.
better. We might do this with the experiment. I got one more upstairs.
We can do 2. That's
we
fine.
can do 2.
That's fine. We'll get lit. It's not 10 in the morning anymore. It's 11:15.
It's almost noon.
This has been a long episode. Yeah. But yeah, so it is funny because the stout flavors are there, and it's not a sweet beer. Like, it's a milk stout. It's sweeter or it's less bitter than like a normal stout or a porter, but it's not cloying.
No.
This to me is a perfect example of like adjuncts done right, where it's like it somehow tastes like Neapolitan ice cream and like a stout at the same time.
Exactly.
It mutes all the stout flavors, but it doesn't lose them. This is really good. I am pleasantly impressed. You told me you were gonna bring us this, and I kind of eye rolled and was like, "That sounds freaking disgusting." I'm not excited for that.
Yep. And now. Like I found it at Meijer. So like when you go to Meijer, you probably find it.
I have had some weird beers. Like, while we're on the subject of nitro, maybe there's something we can dive into more. Haley and I might get some nitro equipment soon, so maybe we can talk about it more if we ever.
Is that a hint for Christmas?
Maybe. But I like Founders Rubaeus, which is like a raspberry ale.
Yeah.
Another one.
Yeah.
I've had that on nitro at their brewery, and it is amazing how much it elevates that beer. And that's like a fruited beer. Like I feel like nitro can go a lot of places. Like I would love to have this on nitro.
Yes.
Like I think it's a really interesting thing to combo with fruitiness or sweetness. And I'd love to see that kind of experimented with more. The bummer, like you said, is it's sort of hard to export that stuff.
Unless you have
you need specialized equipment, or you need to be at the brew house where they can pour it direct for you. So,
well, actually, there was another nitro one I had upstairs. Technically was a porter, but it was a raspberry vanilla porter. That was naturally nice, and it had the same thing. It had the little spigot that drops in.
How was that?
It was very good. The raspberry was a little stronger than vanilla, but it was still very good. Now, I got one surprise for you.
Bone. You're going off script, Ryan.
I'm going off script a little bit, but I saw this today and I had to buy it. It's from a brewery that you love. So, Kentucky Bourbon Barrel. It is a porter, but it is peppermint.
A peppermint porter. The Lexington Brewing Company. I love the Lexington Brewing Company, and I will because. I'm fairly certain, and I apologize if it hasn't, but we did an episode on like our dream brews.
Yeah.
One of mine is their bourbon barrel beer, which is an Irish red that's bourbon barrel. They do a lot. While we're on the subject, they do a bourbon barrel stout that's excellent. But they've done some weird stuff. They do some weird stuff with fruit. They do a vanilla cream ale.
Yep.
They did a pumpkin. That would seem to go against what
too.
I just said about cream ales, but like their vanilla cream ale is amazing. Ooh. So, holy peppermint, Jesus!
So
like I do. I'm weirded out by this, but also I do love mint.
Yeah.
And
I saw it and I'm like, I was with my wife. We were going grocery shopping this morning actually, and I saw it. I'm like, I feel like I should get this because it's like so different, so perfect, and everything else.
This is a porter with natural flavors, aged in oak bourbon barrels. So it's barrel aged and it has peppermint in it.
So ready. This is from their website. Warm up this season with a special release of Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Peppermint Porter with just the right amount of chocolate and peppermint. This bourbon barrel aged porter
smelling
is the perfect complement to a warm fire. Notes of bourbon and toffee complement the roasted malts in this brew and result in a peppermint patty cocktail. And pretty much they had some of their stuff on there. Dark Munich malt, crystal malt, chocolate, and Carapils malt. And then Centennial.
Interesting grain bill.
Yeah, and then Centennial is
different from what we've been talking about with the stout.
Yes. So, cheers. This is another...
Centennial hops is interesting, too, because normally for these styles, you kind of go away from the citrus.
Yeah. Okay, so cheers. This is
Bottoms
another first try.
Okay.
I don't hate it. I don't know if I like it, but I don't hate it.
The peppermint comes through way more on the nose than it does. Oh, nope, I'm getting it now.
Yeah, the nose and the back end for sure.
Yeah. So also, this is a gorgeous beer. You hold it up to one of like your top lights. It kind of looks brown. Hold it up to your window. It's got this gorgeous red color.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you just set it down and it looks almost black.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really pretty beer. Yeah. Oh man, this is weird. We were talking about the peppermint latte at Starbucks. This reminds me a ton of that.
That's why I wanted to bring it up because I saw
But this, I don't get any chocolate in here. Did they say this?
They said there's some like.
Oh no, I get it now.
Like a complement of.
It is kind of like it's peppermint bark.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is like beer peppermint bark.
Yes, along with this a little bit of bourbon aged in there.
You know what? Yeah, I can taste the bourbon. It's a novelty.
It's not as bad.
It's a novelty, but like this is something.
I might let you take
I would
one.
drink it again. I would probably want to split it with somebody.
I'll let you take
I don't know if
one
I could drink
to
a whole pint
your
of
next.
this.
You said you're going to your parents. I'll let you take one to there.
Oh yeah. That would be excellent. Yeah, because I think my dad would be interested in trying this.
But yeah, so that's that. So while we're finishing this real quick, let's dive into our
wrap up our impressions real quick. Yeah.
So what do you think of between bourbons and porters?
So bourbons and porters.
Porters and stouts.
This is what happens when you bring an extra beer to the tasting when we already have one at 8.5%.
I'm about to say this is what happens when you have
and it's the morning
6 or 7 beers at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. So again, I will say like to me, something that stands out is that I think it's interesting that it's hard to find a stout that hasn't been flavored somehow. Yeah. And I think part of it is just that the stout style plays so well to flavors and it's naturally kind of an aggressive style. Like I said, it's like if you have a slider, take all the same grains, all the same hop characters and bitterness and ABV, and you can kind of slide from like English porter to American porter up to like stout, up to like, you could keep Imperial going stout, off the chart to like Imperial Stout, which we haven't even talked about. We may do a separate episode on those.
Imperials, yeah.
But it's just like an Imperial, especially like a Russian Imperial Stout, is just a stout taken to 11.
Yes.
Where like
literally
turned up
11%.
To 11. Yeah, and literally, like 11%. It's just like really in your face. And because those are like, I feel like American Stout's a funny style because it's like people who really love stouts they'll want an Imperial style stout where it's like take those flavors and crank them up. And people who are like, stouts are okay, but they're a little in your face, would rather have a little bit of something added to them to temper it a little bit. That to me is like, honestly, like I get a little bit that the porter is like less deep roasted grains with like the coffee and burnt and chocolate and a little more on the caramel side. But mostly I just get that like porters are, in my experience, a more standard beer, whereas a stout is almost always have some kind of spin on it, whether it's nitro or Neapolitan or whatever it is. So
yeah.
How about you? How does that compare to your impressions? Because I know you kind of have different feelings on the two styles.
I mean, I like both styles. It's kind of like to me, it's kind of like having a pale ale to an Indian pale ale. I'm going to take the IPA over the pale ale myself. And that's just personal opinion. I don't mind a pale ale. I don't mind like Sierra Nevada pale ale. It's a very good beer.
Oh, it's a wonderful beer.
But like if I'm going to get that or if I'm going to get Two Hearted, I'm going to take Two Hearted every single time because it just has a little more flavor to it compared to a pale ale, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Nothing against the porters.
Some flavors are better at full strength than they are at half strength.
Exactly. Like,
It's like
I will
flavored
say,
water.
and I know it's your favorite. The Edmund Fitzgerald like was probably my least favorite of all these, but it's like
That's
it's still
funny, yeah.
it's still like up there for me. Like it's not like it's a bad beer. It's like saying
There
okay,
are just better alternatives for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
so like because I do this with Marvel movies because I don't think there's really there are a couple bad Marvel movies, but like I tier them. Thor 2, yes. I tier them instead of ranking them. So like tier 1 in Marvel would be like obviously like Iron Man and original Avengers and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
For this, tier 1 would be Guinness, the L'Chaim, and then that Samuel James would be
Samuel
that top.
Smith.
Oh, Samuel Smith, sorry.
They're all British.
I know. They are. The Samuel Smith, like in that top tier for me. The second tier would be probably the Neapolitan, the Red Thunder, and then the last tier would be this one from Great Lakes. And it's nothing against it. It's just like I grouped them together instead of
That's
that.
funny,
It's
yeah.
still good to me.
Because the Great Lakes is honestly the L'Chaim was my favorite of the batch.
Oh, really? Okay.
That was so delicious. I'm so happy that is a beer that exists at Dragon Maid now. But Edmund Fitz would be second.
Okay.
I adore this beer. Maybe Guinness is like up there too.
Yeah.
I enjoyed them all. The Peppermint's probably my least favorite, but even that one is still really good and unique.
Yeah.
It's well done.
Yeah.
I just don't know that a minty beer is something I needed.
Exactly.
Now,
No,
with that said, I talked about on our Cal Common episode how Northern Brewer hops kind of have a minty like finish. I've
but
kind of
it's
wanted.
slightly. It's a little more subtle compared
Well,
to this.
it is, and it's not minty flavor.
Yeah.
It's like a freshness.
Yeah.
It's a freshness in your throat.
Yep.
I've kind of wanted to make a stout with those hops.
Ooh,
Because-
that'd be a nice thing to do.
Because they have that kind of earthy thing,
Mhm.
that earthy kind of woodsy thing that like I think would be good for a stout. But that mintiness together with some chocolate flavor, I think it'd be really good.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't
agreed.
be overtly minty.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't knock them out. This was a great episode, especially compared to the pumpkin spice one, which you know is not my wheelhouse.
We stepped up a little
I
bit.
loved all these beers.
Oh, wait,
They're all-
I mean, we got a couple good ones coming up here soon too for our field research.
Yes,
so
we do. You're right.
I'm excited
You're
for
right,
that. So let's go into the end. Let's talk about where we
do
can find
the
everybody.
outro. So I will start because
Okay, go for it.
Yeah,
You can't
I'm mostly
find
off
you.
the grid, right? So you can find the podcast on Twitter at Brewthers-in-Law. That's all one word, no spaces or
That's how
dashes
Twitter
or
works.
anything. We also have a website, brewthers-in-law.com. So
Mm-hmm.
props to Dave from Sixfive for putting that together. I finally actually went on it. Actually, yesterday I hadn't, and it's gorgeous. He does such a beautiful job of that kind of stuff.
shout out to Dave and 6'5". Like I'm glad we met with AZP obviously, and like I'm glad the friendship.
What a guy.
Yeah, what a guy.
So, additionally, Ryan, where can people find you?
So I'm on Twitter as well at Rainbow Kuhn. Brewing wise, you'll find me at Wise Old Owls Brew.
Again, all one word.
All one word, yep. And then I also got, like I said earlier, I got the blog where I did talk about porters and stouts as well.
Yeah, Ryan has like a dedicated post to this episode.
I do actually.
Basically.
And that is hopbrewandblog.com. And of course, you'll find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Apple Podcasts now, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We're on there as well.
Oh, baby.
Make
Everywhere.
sure you rate. We love to have better ratings. Love to hear your comments, and just let us know like what porters and stouts you have in your area. Because again, like you were talking about, we are kind of like set into
We have
this
a
way
fairly
because of
local
Michigan.
selection,
Yeah.
yeah.
We got a great local selection, but I like
We'd love to know.
expanding.
In particular, I'll ask if you've tried a just standard, unadulterated American stout that you loved.
Let us know.
Let us know,
It.
because I'm curious now. Like we looked, I didn't find one.
No, did
I
not
was
either.
going to suggest one to you if I could have found one. I didn't find anything that was like that style with nothing added. So would love to try that. If you want to recommend any other wonderful winter drinks,
Yes.
it's about to get real cold in Michigan very soon. So I'd love to have some options. And make sure to leave any other thoughts about this episode or others. And until next time.
Till next time. Cheers.
Cheers.